It turns out mathematics is a very powerful language. It generated considerable insights in physics, in biology, and economics, but that not much in the humanities and history. And I think there is actually a belief that it's just impossible. We can't quantify the doings of mankind, and we can't measure the history. But I don't think that's true, and I'll show you a couple of examples. So my collaborator Aris and I were considering two kings separated by centuries will speak a very different language. It's a historical force. So in the King of England, the Alfred the Great, will use vocabulary and grammar that is so different from King of Hip Hop Jay-Z. It's just the way it is. Languages change over time. It's a powerful force. And Alice and I wanted to know more about that. We paid attention to one particular grammatical rule, the past conjugation. So you add ed to a verb at the end to signify the past. So today I walk, yesterday I walked, but there are some irregular verbs. Yesterday I thought. And what's interesting about this is some irregular verbs have so between Alfred and JC have become regular. For instance, the verb wet, you see here, has become regular. So Aris and I followed the fates of over 100 irregular verbs through 12 centuries of English language, and we see that there is actually a very simple mathematical pattern that captures this very complex historical change. Namely, if a verb is 100 times more frequent, it regularizes 10 times slower. It's a piece of history, but it comes in a mathematical wrapping. And in some cases, math can even help explain or propose explanations for historical force. So here Steve Pinker and I were considering magnitude of words during the last 2 centuries, where a number of words that are about 100 times more deadlier is 10 times smaller. For instance, there are 30 words that are about as deadly as 6 days were, but there is only 4 words that are 100 times deadlier, like World War I. So what kind of mathematical mechanism that can help produce what's the root of this? So Steve and I, through mathematical analysis, propose that there is actually a very simple phenomenon that in the root of this, which lies in our mind. This is a well-known feature in which we perceive quantities in relative ways. Quantities like the intensity of light or the loudness of a sound. For instance, committing 10,000 soldiers to the next war sounds like a lot. So it's relatively enormous if you have already committed 1,000 soldiers previously, but it doesn't sound that much. It's relatively not enough. It doesn't make any difference if you have already committed 100,000 soldiers previously. So because of the way we perceive quantities, as the war drags on, the number of soldiers committed to its casualties will increase, not linearly like 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, but exponentially like 10,000, later 20,000, later 40,000. And that explains this pattern that we have seen before. So here mathematics is able to link our well-known pattern of the individual mind with long-term historical pattern that unfolds over centuries and across continents. So these types of examples today, there are just a few of them, but I think in the next decade they will become commonplace. And the reason for that is historical record is becoming digitized at a very fast pace. So there are about 230 million books that have written since the dawn of time, and companies like Google have digitized many of them, above 20 million actually. When the historical record is available in a digital form, it makes it possible for mathematical analysis very quickly and very conveniently to find trends in our history and in our culture. So I think in the next decades, the sciences and the humanities will come closer together to be able to answer deeper questions about mankind. And mathematics will become a very powerful language to do that. It will become able to find new trends in our history, sometimes to explain them, and even in the future to predict what's going to happen.